Well, welcome everyone to our 39th episode of Canada Talks Electric Cars. It's great to have so many of our regular attendees here today, and for those watching us for the first time, we really appreciate you spending this time with us. To stay informed about our future monthly webinars and to contribute to the EV community, please consider joining EV Society as a member. Easy to do, just visit evsociety.ca and sign up. So it's no secret that many EV chargers find initiating a charging session at DC fast chargers rather frustrating. Seems, everywhere you go, there's a different method or account uh, required to activate charging. Some require a networks pass card or a smartphone app or sometimes a credit card in order to get the job done. As a result, users must subscribe to multiple accounts and be ready with the right activation process, depending on what charging network they happen to encounter. Well, today we'll be learning about one platform, ChargeHub, that's working hard to remove this inconvenience. In the interest of full disclosure, ChargeHub is currently an EV Society sponsor, but more on that a little later. Before introducing today's speaker, I'm going to just always, as I do, remind you and invite you to ask questions at any time using the Q&A button there on your Zoom screen on the toolbar. And if you notice a posted question that you also would like to hear answered, be sure just to click on the little thumbs up button next to it. And that lets us know that you're interested in that question. Today, we are pleased to introduce the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of ChargeHub, Francis de Broux. Francis is a veteran of the EV industry, having been involved for the past 15 years. He designed and built electric vehicles even before Tesla launched their Model S. Interestingly, he built the electric snowmobile that carried the Olympic torch in Whistler at the 2010 Olympics, and also built a stealth hybrid electric snowmobile for Defense R&D Canada. Francis, thanks for joining us today and welcome to the webinar.
My pleasure. I'm very thrilled to be here talking about a subject that's really passionate for me. So
Yeah, well, that's great because I know you'll be relieving some frustration from a lot of people out there. So we're anxious to hear what you have to say. And I'm going to turn off my feed and let you take over.
yep, sounds good. Okay. Let's see here. Is this you see my screen? It's confirming, Tim.
Yeah, it looks good. You just have to start the play.
Perfect.
That's it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. All right. So on the agenda today, there's a few things that we're going to touch on. Tim did introduce a little bit the topic at charging anywhere, the single account. But before we get to that, so quick overview, we'll review what ChargeHub is, what we do, why are we well placed, and why am I well placed to talk about EV charging interoperability. Then we'll do a quick snapshot of what the state of interoperability is in Canada today, followed by a quick sneak peek at an upcoming interoperability awareness campaign we'll be launching. And lastly, we'll touch base on an ongoing contest with EV Society. So interestingly, it's our 10th year in business since ChargeHub's foundation in 2013. And I've been there since the start, and it's been definitely quite the ride. The EV ecosystem back then was very different. I think you could probably count the number of EV models on fingers of my hand that were available. And our team has grown quite a bit since then and is still growing. We have employees in Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba today. And put simply, what we like to say is that we help everyone charge anywhere. But for drivers, probably our most well-known product is the ChargeHub app. with over 1 million annual users now, it helps drivers to find all the public charging stations from all the different networks, including all the non-network stations. It's a very community-driven app, so that's really how it was designed. Users can add pictures, add comments, edit missing information, etc. And more recently, it's now possible to pay at over 75,000 public stations directly from the ChargeHub app with a single account. So that does help remove some of the burden of having multiple apps on your phone. Another of our driver services or products we have is the online store. We sell and resell, distribute home charging station accessories across Canada in every single province. And we work with multiple partners, and we're, for example, partners of Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis Canada. And for the industry, we do have a number of solutions to really help them transition to EVs or accelerate their EV adoption. And one of our core focuses on our team is what we call the Passport Hub. And this, in very short description, is the streamlined roaming integrations between charging networks and mobility service providers. But this is really the core of the presentation today. So the next couple of slides will help put context onto what this is, what problem it helps solve, and so we'll circle back a little later at this. And the other point I wanted to mention here that I think is pretty interesting for EV drivers, even though it's a solution for the industry, is ChargeHub Central. So that is a tool made for charging site owners, charging networks, or even some funders, entities that fund deployments of charging stations. So what this tool does is it allows those entities to be notified if ever a user of the ChargeHub app can post a comment and say, hey, the charging station cable is cut, they can't access the station. They'll be notified. They could respond to the user and dispatch a team to fix or address the issue. But another very neat feature that one of our more active users, BC Hydro, uses is announcements. So if they know that they're going to be doing work, either maintenance on a station, or they know there'll be road work near a station that'll make it inaccessible, they will post an announcement via Central that will appear in the ChargeHub app, in the ChargeHub website, and partner apps that leverage this information to just proactively warn drivers, say, hey, there's going to be work here. This station may not be accessible from Friday to Monday. Please, plan your travel and charging accordingly. So that's a really cool feature that we're looking to help increase utilization, because we feel it really helps bring that communication to drivers. So that's a quick summary of what we do. So let's dive in to the meat of the presentation today, which is really charging anywhere with a single account, understanding EV charging interoperability and why it matters. And when I talk about interoperability in this presentation, I just want to make sure we're not confusing it with hardware compatibility, let's say between a charging station and a vehicle. So no, that's not what I mean today by interoperability. It's really software interoperability between charging networks, otherwise known as roaming or e-roaming. So that's what I mean by interoperability. So today, if ever many of you are probably EV drivers, that charging at home and workplace, that's easy, right? That's like, check, I know how to do that, no problem. When it gets to public charging, that's when you'll hear a lot of fun stories or adventures. And that's maybe it's because it's still a pretty young ecosystem, but it's pretty fragmented. So it's not the easiest environment to charge a car in. So there's 175,000 public stations in Canada and the US that we monitor. There's operated by over 50 different charging networks, and that list is really growing. I feel like there's a new network every week or every month now. And so, I mean, it's great, more stations, but as a driver, there's still that confusion on how am I gonna pay for this charge once I get there. Does the station have a credit card reader? Does it require an app? Which app? Can I use the app I already use? Can I use a RFID card? Or I heard this thing called plug and charge. Does that work? What is that? So there's all these kind of questions that a lot of drivers will have before going to a station. And selfishly, what I want, and I think a lot of drivers want, is I just want to be able to use my preferred app, that with my single account in that app, to charge everywhere, and I'm going to see all the stations and easily pay for charging. Right? That's what I would want, selfishly. And this is in line with our vision, is that we want you as a driver to use your preferred app, whichever app you want, and use that account to charge and pay for charging everywhere. Now, on the right of the slide here, I put a picture. This is one of my young kids. We did an EV road trip this summer, and I could tell you that, with 2 kids under the age of 3, we do a lot of unplanned stops to deal with their, what seems to be always urgent needs. So, the last thing I want to do is, when I do actually have to stop at a charging station, I just want to go there, start the charge, pay, and on we go. Right? I don't want to have to sit there, figure out like, oh, I need to download another app, add funds to this app, and then how does this work? I don't want to waste 10, 15 minutes of that. I've got enough of other downtime dealing with the kids. So I just want us to be as easy, as seamless as possible. And having a single app that can do everything would really help with this kind of experience. So that brings us to talk about interoperability, or as I said earlier, we call it roaming. So in the ecosystem, we have an entity, or a type of entity, called the e-mobility service provider, or EMSP. And in my previous slide, I mentioned using your preferred app to charge. Well, whoever manages or maintains that app is the EMSP in this situation. So that company, that entity, manages your account. You'll have your payment method attached to that account. Example EMSPs are like automakers. More and more, we're seeing automakers come up with their apps. Ford, for example, has a great app that allows you to charge at multiple networks. A lot of the charging networks themselves are EMSPs. Many sometimes only allow you to charge on their own network, but increasingly there are some that you could charge on more than their own network. And then there's also, like, the ChargeHub app, as I mentioned, is an EMSP, because we can also charge and pay for charging at multiple networks. So we have the EMSP, and then if that EMSP wants to enable its drivers to pay for charging at multiple charging networks, that's where the roaming interoperability magic needs to happen in the background. So the EMSP needs to have an agreement with each charging network, a technical integration with each charging network, and a financial reconciliation or accounting process with each charging network to make this service available to their users, to their drivers. And by experience, I could tell you that managing all these and scaling all these is a lot of work to maintain and operate. But so why go through that trouble, right? If it is complex, to maintain. Now, why does it matter, and why is it so important? And often we get a question like, why not just put credit card readers on every single charging station? And it's a very valid question. And but there are many reasons why the credit card is not the best payment option for in many use cases. And even just anecdotally, for me personally, I love to use an app to pay for charging. If I'm charging and I walk away, I could easily see the status of the charge in the app, and then when it's done, I have the history of all my charging sessions, and it's just neat to see the stats. I guess maybe a little geeky on that side, but I really like having all that information in the app. So for me, if I can ever use an app to charge, that's always my preferred payment method. But I understand some people may not be the case. But okay, so let's go down a list of a few reasons why interoperability matters. So the most obvious one is the convenience aspect of having a single account. For drivers, as we know, just doesn't mean the age of having 20 different apps on your phone is could be gone. But for the industry, this is also very important. The single account aspect, and just think the automaker, your dealer, when you buy a new car, they're saying, "Oh, great, congratulations, you got a new car. Now here's the bullet list of apps you need to download on your phone if you want to charge everywhere." Like that's obviously not the best experience. But for fleets, car rental companies, car sharing companies, this all becomes very key for their operations. And I'll touch base on that in a sec. But interoperability enables charging offers as well. You probably heard classic incentive of buy your car and get a $500 gas card. Well, the equivalent, if you buy an EV, would be here's $500 of charging credits. But how do you use those credits, right? You need to be able to put those credits on an account somewhere where they could be redeemed and used at a maximum number of stations. You don't necessarily want to put them just on an account that has a very limited reach or number of stations compatible. So that's definitely something that's very, very relevant, and we're seeing a lot of interest in the industry for doing that kind of stuff. Also, a big interest we're seeing mostly in the United States at this point, but a lot of utilities and associations there are they're wanting to incentivize drivers who don't have access to home charging with public charging credits. And because there's a lot of incentives to install your home charger, but what about everybody who don't have access to home charging? So they want to be able to give incentives to those folks as well through charging credits, because they'll rely on public charging a lot more. So yeah, charging offers very important, and that's why interoperability is needed to support these kind of programs. A third one, plug and charge experience at scale. So plug and charge, just quickly, that's if you show up at a station, you just simply plug the connector to your vehicle and magically it starts charging and will bill your account when you're done. You never have to take a phone out, don't take RFID card out, no credit card out, like just plug, charge, and payment is happening magically in the cloud. So today there are a few instances where this is possible with some networks and some vehicles, but if we take this at scale with multiple charging networks, multiple EMSPs, there needs to be a e-roaming or interoperability layer connecting all the moving pieces behind the scenes. And for industry, I did mention earlier that single account convenience aspect is very key, and it's very true for industry. And we're talking about here fleets, car rental companies, car sharing companies, that for them, having a mobile app to control the charging experience is very key. And it very well meshes with their operations. a lot of them need to authenticate their drivers, which will really reduce fraud of their system. And also, maybe it sounds simple, but all the transactions, charging transactions, can seamlessly be integrated into their accounting software. And that's, yeah, like I said, it maybe sounds simple, but after speaking with all these companies and various fleet scenarios, this is a huge piece for them. And having interoperability is, kind of like a make or break decision of whether they go all into EV or not, or wait. So interoperability really has the power to accelerate EV adoption in Canada and in North America in general. So yeah, that's why we're really passionate about interoperability, and we're trying to do our part in enabling interoperability between charging networks and EMSPs. So let's take a quick look at what is the state of interoperability in Canada today. There are about 25,000 public charging stations and about 25 charging networks that manage most of these stations. There are stations that are non-networked as well. And at the bottom, we have a kind of score grid, or that would show what's like a scorecard of where interoperability is at today, and where to the right, in green would be what we would call a great interoperability, meaning that you as a driver can choose whichever app you want, which your preferred EMSP, and you could charge on every single charging network with that EMSP, with that single account. So that would be ideal world. We're not there yet, but we're definitely making good progress. So there's some good news here. So by our count, about 16 networks have at least one interoperability connection with third-party EMSP today. 7 of those have 5 connections to EMSPs. So we can see we don't have like the vast majority of networks covered in this yet, but still there's quite a bit of interoperability today. And in terms of EMSPs, we have 8 EMSPs that have at least 5 connections with different networks. And just to give the ChargeHub app example, today in Canada, there are 8 networks that can be accessed through the ChargeHub app today, and multiple others are coming up in the coming months. So that'll be very great for drivers. But there are other apps as well here that that can have multiple networks accessible through their app. So that includes the Ford app I mentioned earlier. There's Flow, ChargePoint, Electric Circuits, or other apps that allows drivers to access multiple networks with a single account. So overall, we're approximately in the middle, I'd say, in the yellow zone in terms of progress towards great interoperability. But I am just so optimistic and very excited because I know there's so many connections and work being done to increase these numbers of connections in even just a couple of weeks and months. Some will be announced. So this brings me back to talk about one of the services we provide in the ecosystem, which is the Passport Hub. So now that we've talked about what interoperability is and what it needs, maybe this makes a bit more sense now what we're trying to do. So really, in a nutshell, is we streamline the whole process of roaming connections, or creating those interoperability connections between charging networks and EMSPs. And what we see here are all of the networks and EMSPs that are currently live, doing transactions on a daily basis through our Passport Hub. Doesn't mean if you're a network that all the MSPs have access to you or vice versa. So really it's an open solution. It's not a take all or leave all solution. It's really there as an option for industry to accelerate their interoperability connections and in turn, help accelerate EV adoption. That's, bottom line, that's really why we're doing this, to accelerate the EV adoption. And we have many different partners that will be joining soon and be available for more drivers to access through their single preferred account, including the IV charging network in Ontario, one of the biggest DCFC networks in Ontario. So we're very excited to have that one added to our hub, hopefully before the end of the year. And yes, so despite all these interoperability connections and all that progress towards increasing the interoperability connections, now what we've found with our partners is that it's still quite misunderstood or unknown by the general public that you can use. Actually, there's a couple apps out there that you can use to charge at multiple different networks, and for that reason, we've partnered with multiple industry partners, including Natural Resources Canada, to help raise awareness about interoperability in general to drivers, but also to industry. And really, we hope to alleviate a little bit the number of apps that everybody needs to have on their phones to charge everywhere. So this will be launched in November. It will be its own brand identity, but we'll be kind of piloting it with a bunch of partners. So if anybody on the call is interested to participate, you can always shoot me an email after. I'll get to talk more about this initiative. And yeah, it will launch in November 2023. Last item on the agenda, I want to touch base on a contest we have ongoing with EV Society. And it's quite simple. We're working with EV Society and your members to add charging station pictures via the ChargeHub app. And why is this important? Why are we running this contest? It's quite simple. In our opinion, we really want to help provide the best charging experience to drivers, and having a picture really helps the next driver who will go there kind of a better expectation of, okay, what is going to be there when they arrive. And hopefully maybe they'll be a little more prepared, or maybe they'll notice that, oh, this actually doesn't have the connector for my car. Maybe they didn't see it in the details or something. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. And really, we're trying to get as many pictures as possible on all the charging sites across Canada. We already have tons and tons of pictures, but we want to try to get all of them. And that's why we need your help. And with the EV Society, we've installed some prizes, some monthly prizes and grand prizes totaling $2,500 in value. The contest ends still at the end of the month, so there's still lots of time. And in short, it's to add pictures at charging sites that don't currently have pictures. But for more details exactly and how to participate, I'd invite you to visit the evsociety.ca/contest webpage. So there we have it. I hope the talk about charging interoperability and single accounts, was useful for everybody attending tonight or this afternoon if you're on the West Coast. Very happy to start answering some questions and have a little discussion. Thank you.
Great, Francis. I want to add a little bit about the contest too, and that is initially it was a requirement that you be an EV Society member in order to participate in the contest. But I think that requirement has been rescinded. So everybody can participate, but you do have to go through a couple of steps to set up your ChargeHub account so that we know you're participating in the contest. And I'm going to put notes in the recording liner of this episode that will lead people to information directly about how to participate in the contest. And to be clear too, I think that I have a list now of thousands of chargers right across Canada in cities and provinces, coast to coast, that don't have pictures associated with them. And as Francis says, one of the great things about having good photos right in the app next to the charger is that it's easy to identify and find it. So if you're driving into a parking lot or someplace where there's a charger for the first time, the picture really gives you an orientation and you know where to go, and it's on the side of that building, or it's a very helpful thing if you've ever gone out and searched for chargers. So really encourage everyone to participate. You've got 4 weeks to still do it. And as I say, I'll put those links into the recording notes at the bottom of the YouTube post. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Chris. The questions have been fast and furious here. We've got over 20, I think, there. So hey, Chris, Chris Guernsey's looking after our Q&A this month. Jason was unable to join us today. He'll be back next month, but Chris normally looks after all the techie stuff, but he's agreed to help us with the questions. So Chris, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. I was just going to say that that list of chargers that need photos that you were talking about there, Tim, that sounds like the start of a really, really amazing road trip. That's what I think of when I hear that. But on to the questions. The first question that we have is how does the implementation of the NACS, or North American Charging Standard, impact interoperability and the ChargeHub initiative?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know what, it's great that the NACS connector will be expanded to other automakers and will open up the network. And ultimately, I think this is good news. It means more vehicles will want to be able to charge on more networks, and you know, non-Tesla on Tesla, and I imagine Tesla vehicles on non-Tesla. So I think this is great. There's more. It means that there will be a need for more interoperability to make all this happen. So we're very eager to help, you know, Tesla and any other automaker incorporating and charging network, incorporating the NACS connector to be part of the interoperability campaign.
Cool. So the next question, I'm going to paraphrase ever so slightly. Will the en route chargers in Ontario be part of the, will you be able to pay for them with the ChargeHub app?
Sorry, was that the en route?
En route, yeah, which I believe is IV.
Is IV. So yes, recently, you know, announced they're coming up very soon. Don't have a firm date yet, but definitely will be a top priority once we can get that integration going. It'll be great because that will open up a lot of fast chargers connecting. You know, we have, I know, like the Prairies, like Co-op Connect that's there, and in Quebec there's Electric Circuit, and so with IV there we'll have another big chunk of fast chargers all connected through the hub. So looking forward to that.
Cool. So when we use ChargeHub to pay for charging, for example, at a ChargePoint charger or Flow or wherever else, do we pay more per minute for using the ChargeHub app to pay instead of the ChargePoint app? In other words, who pays for the services? Is there a fee for?
Yeah, good question. Yes, so there is a fee somewhere. The question is, yeah, who will pay for it? That's somewhere. And down the line. So on a typical basis, there is a 75-cent fee added on a level 2 charger, at $1.25 added on a level 3. This could be paid by the driver if the driver just signs up and pays through directly from the ChargeHub app. We've done a lot of campaigns and programs with automakers who are giving charging credits or deciding to pay what we call the ChargeHub Passport membership, which essentially waives those the additional fee per session. But yes, there's a small fee. It could be paid by the driver, it could be paid by the automaker, could be paid by the charging network. It depends in each case. But yeah, that's what it takes. That's the cost for the convenience of having a single account.
Cool. Similar question, not exactly the same, but definitely connected, is how does ChargeHub make money? Will you be, is there a yearly, monthly subscription, or like what's the, I guess, the way that it operates?
So there are those transaction fees that we process. Sometimes they come through the ChargeHub app, but also just want to make sure it's clear that we also enable the Passport Hub, right? So any other app that wants to charge and use our service can go through that, and so that's also part of our model. And yes, there can be an annual subscription to waive that first session fee if you're a big user of public charging. But that subscription is not widely available yet. Probably in a couple of months, you'll hear more about the availability of that subscription.
Okay.
And yeah, there are other, we have a home charger store. We license the location information of the data to automakers, to mapping service providers. So a number of connected services.
Cool. Next question is, will the one account, I'm going to assume that's talking about the ChargeHub app, will that be usable in the US?
Definitely, it already is. There are, I think in the US, 60 or 65,000 stations that you can access and pay for with the ChargeHub account.
Cool. This next question is a little farther away from interoperability particularly, but it's an interesting question. I'd be really interested in hearing your insight. And it is, in your opinion, what are the main causes for the current lack of reliability with EV chargers?
Well, yeah, that is the question. That's definitely something very top of mind here. You could be sure we are working with a lot of funders of the various programs funding deployments, charging networks, to track anything we can to see what are the issues causing some bad experiences for drivers. It's not just sometimes it's not just a reliability that the charger is broken. Sometimes it's just a flow or a misunderstanding of how to start a charge or how to stop a charge. Even so, I think we take it broader than just a reliability. We just take it as the experience of charging, and what cause. I don't think there's a single cause that we can pinpoint. Yeah, there are a number of causes, but what we could see is that, especially in the last 2 years, even last year, there's been tremendous push from industry, from government to tackle this. This is the next big problem that is being tackled. There are big charging experience consortiums in the US and in Canada, and tracking reliability, uptime, and really that's the next big thing. Before it was just let's get infrastructure out there and coverage, and now it's okay, wait, let's make sure that what we put works. And so that's really what we're seeing, and we're really excited to be part of the solution. And we have a lot of information, we have driver insight, so we're trying to share that again. And that's the other reason: put comments, share your experience. If something went poorly at a station, that's great. We will help inform charging networks, will help inform the charger manufacturers of what's going on. So yeah, please do post comments. It's very helpful to solve this problem.
Cool. It's nice to hear that that's the next big push. I think that's definitely a good direction. Next question is there a URL or a location somewhere on the internet that lists all of the networks that the ChargeHub app currently works with and is updated regularly?
Yes. I mean, on our website map or in the app, you could see the whole list of networks that we just have the data for. A number of them, you could also have the real-time status, if they're available in use or offline. And then a number of them you could pay for. And even a small number of them that we're talking about reliability is like, we're looking or helping them analyze all of the charging sessions that they have on their network to identify issues, help them identify issues for reliability. So we work with a lot of different charging networks at different levels across, from just the static information to full payment and all the charging session usage data.
So in the app,
yes, and you can see.
Can you like filter based on
yes.
whether or not you can pay?
Yes, you could filter in the app for any network you want, and at the top of the list, there's a filter to see only stations you could pay for.
Cool. The next question is, where does the Petro-Canada network fit with the interoperability? I guess, what's their status currently?
Yeah, I think, getting there is the question. Not there yet. Definitely, our goal is to work with everybody. And I think it's just a question of time before that will come up.
So they're currently still a standalone, kind of in their own little ecosystem?
Yes, and I think that there's progress. I think that's the good thing, is it's moving in the right direction and we're getting there.
Cool.
I have to ask a question just because I'm nosy. So is there a method right now for you to be able to reach out to all of your ChargeHub subscribers, customers, to let them know when a new network is added, or they just have to stumble upon that inside the app? Like, do you broadcast a message saying, hey, IV at the en route stations is now part of our...
That's a good question. And I think, we haven't been the best at communicating that ourselves in the past, but I think we made a lot of progress recently with that front. I mean, we do have a newsletter where, say, every time that there's a new network, even if it's just for the real-time status, we'll say, hey, new network has this feature. And of course, when there's a payment, we'll mention that. And we'll post that on our socials as well. So we're trying to spread the word as much as we can. But yeah.
At the moment, no notification inside the app with a little check messages or whatever, and what's new. I just gave you a project. I know. I just gave you a project.
Look in August, you might receive one. Hint, hint.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, the next question, the $1 million question. Will I be able to use my Tesla app to pay for, I guess, other things other than Tesla? Or will I be able to use my ChargeHub app
to enable that, of course. One thing that is available for Tesla drivers is you could open tesla.chargehub.com in your website, in your browser, in your Tesla. And you could have the ChargeHub app like open in the Tesla screen, and you could pay for charging directly there. So that's possible today. It's connected to your ChargeHub account directly in the screen. It's not the Tesla app, and we would for sure love to support Tesla with that. And I think it's another one of those situations where, with time, we'd love to see that happen.
Next question is, does ChargeHub collect carbon credits?
We don't. No.
Okay.
If there's any reason you think we should, please contact me. Happy to have a chat.
Cool. I guess this is more of a comment, I guess, more than a question. But the app should work with offline maps also. There are situations where there is no data link available or simply data roaming is too costly. Do you have a comment?
It's definitely something on our back burner to support. We did support it at one time, and it was removed for, I can't remember what reason. It's something, yeah, we want to look at. Of course, if that's the offline mode you're using, you won't be able to activate or pay for charging in that situation. But simply for finding stations, yeah, it's a very good question. And I think, you know, if you write in to our support and saying you want this, like, that helps us prioritize. It's one of those things where you don't know how many people actually want that, you know, that kind of feature. So if it's of interest, yeah, please message it in.
Okay. Which regulations govern the operation of charging sites?
I believe this is a question I'm not the best to answer for. We don't install public charging stations, or do anything with, you know, getting permits for that. So I'm afraid I can't answer that one.
Okay. No problem. I'm going to paraphrase this question a little bit as well. For level 2 chargers, is there, like, if you have a level 2 charger, would you be able to use ChargeHub to, like, charge other people to use your personal charger? Is that something?
Not directly. No, I think there are a couple of partners that like kind of charging networks that are starting to look into that feature. And in that case, if we're connected to that network, then that would be a possibility. But enabling you to add a station and, you know, us processing the transaction somehow is not something we currently support.
Okay. This question, I have 2 ChargeHub apps. Are they the same? Or are they, do you have multiple apps, or is there just the one?
I'm not aware of a second ChargeHub app.
Okay.
I mean, we have our internal tester app. Unless maybe you're a ChargeHub tester and you have access to our tester app, that would be the only situation. But on the public app store, there's only one.
Okay. So if you have 2, then my assumption would be that they're probably different. Okay. Next question. Does ChargeHub work with rental companies?
Not publicly announced yet.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay,
but
gotcha.
As I mentioned, there's a very good use case for interoperability in those types of use cases.
Okay. Next question. This one I think we've kind of answered kind of tangentially, but I've been using Tesla Navigator to find chargers while en route. How will this work with ChargeHub? You'd mentioned that you can open ChargeHub on the screen.
You could, yes. There is a trip builder functionality if you want, like in the ChargeHub app. You could, you know, point A, point B. You could see the chargers on the route, but it won't tell you, okay, stop here for 12 minutes and 15 seconds and then go here for 10 minutes. You know, it's not that detailed. It's more allows you to build your own trip and stops. Our app is not connected to your car directly, so there's no way of knowing in real time, you know, what your state of charge is and when you should stop. But, you know, we have the tools that in your Tesla, yeah, you can see all of the public stations available in the infotainment screen.
Okay.
Hey, Chris, you have 1 or 2 more, or 1 more, and then we probably a good time to start to wrap.
Okay. Well, this next question, actually, it's a bit of a whopper. It's maybe slightly controversial, but I think it's also an opportunity. This question is, how does ChargeHub compare with PlugShare in terms of providing access to EV charging? So a little bit of a compare and contrast. Your strengths are
definitely. Well, I guess, first of all, there are many aspects of the app that are similar. And, the biggest differentiator is really the amount of charging stations and networks you could pay for with a single account with the ChargeHub app. Not something you can do with the PlugShare app at the same scale. And second, we're Canadian, you're Canadian, support Canadian. Let's go.
Not a bad way. Not a bad way to end the questions.
excellent.
Very good. Very good. All right. Thanks, Chris. That's awesome. I think we've covered all the major questions there. And Francis, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming on and helping us understand a little better what's going on at ChargeHub and what the advantage and opportunity is for EV drivers to get that app. It's just a free app on your phone. And I did have a friend who tells me they were having difficulty getting it installed on an older iPhone. So I guess it needs to be a relatively new phone, or was there?
That's a good question, but please, if there's any issues like that, feel free to reach out and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, I'll talk to him about that. But thanks very much. We really appreciate you coming on.
It was my pleasure. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yeah, have a good evening. So I'll just mention one last time that I'll put some notes into the recording liner notes that goes with this recording so that you can investigate the contest a little further, and hopefully you will decide to participate and help us out. So for next month on Canada Talks Electric Cars, we'll be taking a look at electric vehicle tire design by one of the world's largest tire manufacturers. Low rolling resistance, soundproofing, and sustainability will be just a few of the topics that Russell Shepard, Technical Communications Director at Michelin Tires, will address. So if new winter tires are on your agenda, then the timing will be perfect, and you won't want to miss this opportunity to learn more about tires for an EV and to ask questions of an expert. So remember to mark that date. It'll be Tuesday, September 5th, always 7:30 Eastern Time. So on behalf of the webinar team here at EV Society, thanks for joining us on today's episode, and also for your continued support of the monthly webinar. We keep doing it because you come back, and we really appreciate the positive comments and appreciate the constructive ones as well. So don't hesitate to drop us a line and let us know what you're thinking. And on behalf of us all, thanks. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe, because that helps people find us on the internet. From all of us at EV Society, and until next time, stay well. And this will conclude today's webinar.